Okay, the recording has started, and this is the May 18th, 2021 Rook community meeting. Letting some more folks into the call here now. All right, let's get started with our milestones here. 1.5, I think there may be a little discussion about if we need to do a patch release or another one of these. What are we on, like 1.5.10?
Did we have 11 already? I'm losing track. I think it was .11. Yeah, we got 11 out 2 weeks ago.
Nice. So yeah, when we don't have anything on the board at all, so it doesn't seem like there's a case yet for doing another patch release, unless maybe there's something on the 1.6 board that looks like it's worth backporting. But anybody want to raise a hand for the necessity of a 1.5 patch release?
From my perspective, I don't know of a real need to, but I believe we have backported a couple other fixes since .11, so we could easily run another release, say next week, just to pick those up. But I'll double check. For my view, we don't need one, but let's see. We could do one.
Yeah, I guess we do have some fixes that have been merged and are sitting in the release branch that have not gone out. Then keeping regular train going like every couple of weeks there seems fairly reasonable. Then if there are feature fixes in the branch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the .11 picked up a CVE from Ceph, where some fixes were in the latest Ceph release. So that was the most critical one. But anyway, we should probably just plan on another one in the next week or two, and then call it good.
Yeah, that does make sense. All right, let's take a look, see here at the 1.6 board. Yep, and so we're working towards another patch for the 1.6. Travis, you want to kind of talk about some of the highlights that'll be in that patch?
Yeah, well, this will be the 2-week cadence if we release on Thursday. So I forgot to take a look at the board this morning to make sure that was up to date. But there, yeah, the one in progress there. Let's see, I'm trying to see your screen. Implements event reporting. Oh, I think this is an interesting one. So up till now, we haven't been reporting events on our CRs, but now with this change, we'll be able to see the most important thing being if a reconcile fails in the operator, we'll be able to see a Kubernetes event on the cluster CR being reported with that error. It's been kind of hidden, or you have to look at the logs, or it's just harder to see, but the event will help surface that on the CR.
I have found events to be really, really useful, especially because it does a really good job of capturing debugging information and useful I guess events is the best way to say it, but like milestones for an object's lifecycle all in one place. And so I think it's much easier for people to access that, especially like more on the consumer side, instead of having to look in the pod, like logs for a pod to see troubleshooting and observability information. So I'm always a huge fan of events. I did change my tune on that like a year ago or so, and it's been super useful since then. So yeah, definitely vote for events for sure.
That's the reason why I like kubectl describe so much as well.
Describe,
like
exactly.
You get the quick overview of like what's the status of the containers, for example, for a pod, and then also the events. And most of the time combined the events with like the status, the quick status. If we do it right, it will be awesome for the people using it. So completely agree.
Yeah.
What would the scope of this be? Is this for like all of the major Ceph objects, or just like some highlight ones, like at the cluster level, or?
Well, this PR, it's just the first implementation of the Ceph cluster events or the result of the Ceph cluster reconcile. But we want to add more events for each of the CRs reconciles after this, not just Ceph cluster. So yeah, it'll need follow-up PRs
Oh, okay. I see.
to do it for all the CRs.
And so this is the one that implements it for the cluster CR.
That's right.
Got it.
Mhm.
Very cool. Yeah, I like that one a lot.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, and there are other fixes that would be in the .3 release this week. I'm gonna forget all of them on the spot, but it's all goodness. And if there's anything that really needs to be in the release, yeah, let me know so we can make sure it's in the blocking release column.
Cool. Okay. If anybody has anything else to say for the 1.5 or 1.6, then just holler right now. And otherwise, we can continue moving on. Okay, so for the community topic section, I just wanted to open the floor for folks to kind of share some of their experiences from KubeCon EU last time. We canceled the Rook community meeting in order to be able to focus on KubeCon and avoid long days for Europeans or crazy hours for North America folks. So did anybody want to kind of share kind of how some of the Rook sessions, like Travis, you did a lightning talk. We did a deep dive session as well too on the Meet the Maintainer track. Kind of, we're going to share some of the learnings or observations from those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, on the lightning talk, I thought it was really good just to give a quick 7-minute overview of Rook. One thing I wish would have been different as far as the what was supposed to happen. They said no Q&A for the lightning talks. I mean, I'm sure it's just because of the speaker could easily be overwhelmed with tons of questions from more people that attend the lightning talks. But people were asking the questions anyway, and I was doing my best to keep up with them. So it was good to see that and see the questions. People have questions, they want to know more. There's just a chasm between how do you get them into the Rook community, like in the Rook Slack after, to get them to follow up on questions. Because once they're out of that lightning talk, I don't feel like we got any of them to join. Or maybe they did, and I just didn't know who they were. So that's all for me. I know Satoru was at the deep dive talk. It was pretty early for Blaine. Blaine, you didn't make it, did you? It was just too early.
Oh yeah, it was really, really early. Yeah, Satoru had good things to say. I guess there were 10 questions or so that he was able to answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And otherwise, we didn't have a Rook booth or pavilion or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, in the value of those, in a virtual setting is still, somewhat questionable. So that's not a huge loss. I think the lightning talk and the Meet the Maintainer track stuff, I think that's got more value, being able to connect with people and, really share the message and answer questions more than the booth does.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to the next conference where they're trying to do a hybrid event where some in person, because in person is, I don't know, it's more effective for talking to people.
You'll be in LA, you think, Travis, for that?
If it's open for visitors, I want to be there. Yeah.
Nice.
Let's see, maybe everyone which is attending virtual is going to be like a robot running or driving around the halls.
It'll be pretty crazy. Okay, so let's move along then to just a quick update for the CFP. I think that's this week on Sunday evening, the call for proposals for the next KubeCon, because you don't get too long of a break in between KubeCons, folks. The next call for proposals is due on Sunday evening. So if you have some talks or some ideas you want to submit, I think Travis has linked it right here in the doc. And that will be for the KubeCon that's scheduled to be the hybrid event we're talking about there in Los Angeles, California, this October. It's always out of cycle. The lightning talks, meet the maintainer stuff, that's always done in a different process. So we do not have to have anything submitted for those by Sunday night at least. All right, CI improvements. I know we've done a whole bunch of stuff to continue our migration off of Jenkins, which is awesome. Do you want to give us an update about that and all the details?
Yeah. So yeah, lots of good progress. We're getting close to turning off Jenkins, I feel like. So where we are, so master builds are publishing with the GitHub action. And what that means is, well, pretty soon we'll be able to do that for release builds as well, but we're just working out one last kink with it so it picks up the right tags for that. But yeah, we're publishing now. The integration tests are running successfully, just with the typical intermittent failures because we run it on a variety of Kubernetes versions. And there's always intermittent failures, but there's a link there to see that. And so I think based on our conversation last time, all the maintainers don't get an email when the master actions run. It must be only people who comment on the PR or merge the PR, something like that is, but I guess I'm not 100% sure on how that's behaving today. But if we can see them by going to that link there. Yep. So there you go. Every time we merge, we get them running. So what's next? To really be able to turn off Jenkins and go full on with the GitHub actions, we need to convert the NFS operator tests to run as an action. That's the last integration test that's not yet as an action. We've got to do some little things like update the badge that we show on GitHub to pick up those actions instead of Jenkins. Then disable the Jenkins tests for PRs and the master branch, because then there will be nothing left that they need to run. I still want to leave the release build running on Jenkins a little longer, just till I'm fully 100% confident in them. But we're close, because then we have to publish the release builds with an action as well. I think we've got all the pieces in place and we know how to do all these things. It's just getting all these little work items done. And Seb, anything you want to add on all those? You've been shepherding them quite a bit too.
I just joined. So
oh, you missed it. Okay.
Yeah, you took me off guard, Travis. Yeah. No, I think I was thinking for quite a while that we could add the badges for sure. That's definitely something that would be good to highlight. It's mostly cosmetic, but it's still, I think it's good to have. Yeah, I think we're on the right track, honestly, to move out of the Jenkins instances we have.
Yep, so we're close.
Yes, we are. Super exciting. Yeah, really. And well, GitHub is awesome, honestly, like at so many levels. So yeah.
Having all the tests running in parallel so you can see your entire results in less than a half hour instead of like an hour and a half or 2 hours.
Yeah, I think where we can, there are some small improvements that we could do in the way we gather the results, I think. But overall, yeah, it has proven to be much more reliable and stable and well integrated. Even the reports, and I think this is also like stepping a little bit the path for running more tests against Ceph master, because I feel like we start testing the newer release once it's like 2 weeks from being out, and I've always had that not dream, but like I always wanted to be as close as possible from Ceph master so that we could just quickly make sure we don't miss anything. So that's really easy to add and yeah, get nice reports too. So
Yep.
Yeah.
It's all good. Any questions on the CI or comments?
I'm definitely excited about being able to fully retire Jenkins as well too.
Mhm.
It served well for years, but it also didn't.
Extra maintenance task.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Okay, sounds good. Yeah, thanks for the effort on
Yep.
that, everybody. And then, so the next item here is, I took a quick look at that PR, Travis. Do you want to share a little bit more context here, and then kind of maybe explanation of like some of the impact, like the impact of that? Like that was something I didn't, yeah, motivation and impacts. I wasn't quite sure of moving those types around and stuff, and then like getting rid of Rook V1. I was little confused about what sort of impact there may be.
Right. So on so the Rook V1 package, basically we've got it. So it's some shared types that the several operators have shared, like Cassandra and NFS and Ceph operators now. There are a few types that we found, oh, they all use these same things. Let's put them in one place so that they can be shared. And it was even more shared when we had like EdgeFS used a bunch more of the types, but with EdgeFS gone now, and I was looking at the commonality, the overlap in those types. So like take for example the storage type, or what we call it, storage class, just the storage type. So under the storage, you've got nodes, you've got volume claim templates for running Ceph OSDs on PVCs, and it's a whole bunch of things. And Ceph uses all of these types basically, or all these fields, but like the Cassandra operator only uses one of them. It only uses volume claim templates. And then the NFS operator, I don't think used any of them. And if an operator doesn't need the types, does it really make sense to have the overlapping types where if one operator wants to add a type, now the other one gets the type in its schema too, but then it doesn't use it. It's just kind of awkward. So especially since the schema generation in 1.6 that we have now, we take the actual types and we generate the schema. And if there are any types that aren't being used in an operator, you'd wonder, wait, why is that in the schema? So the motivation was really to say, okay, let's do what's right for each operator, which is the types and the generated schema should be exactly what that operator needs. And that means defining the properties in the types.go for each operator and not having a common rook.io where you might get types and properties you don't need. Yeah, so that's the real kind of background for what makes sense for that. And then in a couple of places there's some shared code still, like for dealing with annotations and a couple other types, where then I just put those in a different package like KDS util, so they can still get that shared code benefit just without the types being in that other package. Yeah, so questions or thoughts?
And then, so walk me through a little bit more on how, like if we put this into, this doesn't sound like something we'd backport, or unless the migration is super simple. But say we release this in 1.7 and somebody does an upgrade to the 1.7 binaries. So we're thinking that the struct, like the serialization or deserialization of a CRD, of a CR, would it be functionally equivalent in terms of its serialized JSON, or like the way it's stored inside of the API server? So like the Golang types, the packages that they're imported from, etc., might have changed, but serializing and deserializing that round trip there is still matching the same schema there, so it would round trip just fine and go along without really even having a care about it? Or do we have to do any sort of like mutations or conversion hooks or anything like that?
Yeah, we're fine because you're right, because the JSON deserialization will just pick up the types in the new package, even though the types moved packages, that's the same JSON underneath. And so I haven't found any conversion needed. The upgrade tests that we already have are working fine with this change. But yeah, I don't want to backport it. I just want to leave it for a 1.7 release.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
That's good. That sounds good. Then if we're feeling comfortable about that and it's being exercised on in our end-to-end integration tests in the release test in our master builds, like from a 1.6 to current master.
Well, the
1.6 to this
upgrade
PR.
tests. Well, upgrade tests still need to be updated to be 1.6 to master. Today it's 1.5 to master, which is even, I guess, more telling that yes, it should work. But yeah, maybe I'll make the change for the 1.6 upgrade test while I'm at it, so we can confirm that upgrade looks good.
And that upgrade test would be exercised within this PR, right? With this code still in this branch that has not made it to master, right?
That's right. Yeah, it treats whatever's in this branch as kind of master.
Right. Okay, well, that sounds good then from a risk or migration standpoint. I think I do like that we still have some common functionality in terms of like logic or functions that is can be used by multiple providers. So like not every provider has to implement everything themselves. I do like that part. And I could see a case here for not requiring each provider to get more than they need, basically, or feeling kind of constrained by one provider wanting to add a type to that shared type or a field to that shared type, and then that having impact on the other providers, et cetera. So I could see the point for that. Yeah, I think it is definitely kind of another step away from an idealized goal of having a lot of shared logic, shared types being like a framework foundation for a lot of providers, but that trend hasn't really been able to get the investment that it's we've wanted for quite a while now anyway. So it's not like we're taking a strong divergence from what we've been doing in practice recently, I suppose.
Right. And in practice, every storage provider is so different that from the types perspective, I think they just have to be unique per provider. But then the shared code is where I feel like we can really do the most as providers want to do more.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, cool. Yeah, okay, that makes sense to me, I suppose then. Yeah, thanks for taking time to kind of explain it a little bit more. I went in and looked at it this morning and I kind of got a bit of an overview of like what was moving around and stuff like that, but I also saw thousands of lines moving, and I was like, oh, community meetings today. I'm just gonna have Travis explain it to all of us when we're all synchronously online chatting. So yeah, that makes it easier. Thank you for doing that, Travis. I appreciate that.
Sounds good.
Looks like we have a question from Abdullah from raise your hand.
Hi, yeah, I've been using the Rook recently. Been running into a couple of situations where I can't get those resolved. I have some tickets open. I'm not sure what the process is. Is this something we're doing something wrong or what? Because it's just like if I look at ticket number 7756, collected the logs and everything else, but we don't seem to make any progress as far as resolving them. So I need your advice, like what is it that I can do to speed up the process?
And you've been asking in Slack too?
Yeah, as well. So I have tickets, a couple of them that we blocked on. We're trying to bring up a cluster with Rook, and we seem kind of like we're blocked with 2 issues.
So what was the issue? 7776?
7756.
56.
PVC provisioning. Oh.
Yeah, to follow up on troubleshooting, the best thing might be to just in the Ceph channel of Slack, just to put another note, and then we can follow up and look at those.
I don't get any traction on those either. So I mean, we're stuck using Rook at this point. I'm not sure if I should go back to using Ceph deploy or what.
Yeah, so I guess sometimes we just need a reminder in Slack that, hey, just to ping it again there, because we try to keep up on Slack on a daily basis. So if you don't see a response in Slack like within 24 hours, feel free to ping again and just say, hey, still struggling here.
And there's the other ticket number, say for the dashboard, 7706. I mean, we're completely blocked by these two. So
Okay, so the credentials for Ceph dashboard.
And I see some other tickets that are similar, but some of them are closed.
Okay. Yeah, with the dashboard, frequently it's an environment issue. It's just hard to track down because in some environments it works, and apparently
I can bring up
not.
the Prometheus metrics, but not the dashboard for that instance. And then the other one is provisioning the PVCs. It doesn't go to bound state; it stays in pending. So I captured all the logs I think that we needed. I'm not sure where the issue is.
Okay. And how recently could you just put another note in Slack in the Ceph channel and just say, hey, these two issues are blocking us, and then
sure.
Then
This
I'll
is
tag
the
someone to look.
Ceph CSI or Ceph Dev channel?
Or probably just the Ceph channel.
Ceph channel, okay.
Yeah, that would be good.
Maybe just one idea already to throw it in. Have you tried updating to the latest Ceph version you're on? Maybe that already fixes it. As you're on 15.2.8, or well.
So I've been using the same Rook version for last 2 months, at least. Do you recommend using the latest one or another version?
Well, from at least, well, let me put it like this: you seem to have issues with the manager dashboard setup right now. Maybe an update will fix it, to put it like that. Like it said, like you're on Ceph version 15.2.8, so maybe it's just the Ceph update which resolves this for, well, whatever reason there is. On the other hand, Travis, remind me again, which 1.5 release was the latest one?
1.5.11 is the latest Rook release.
Okay, so those would be, at least from my side, regarding the troubleshooting more or less like the first two things to look into. First, Ceph version update to at least latest 15.3. Are we already at 3? I don't know. We need to check on Docker up. And then if that doesn't resolve it, updating to the latest at least patch release of version 1.15, 1.5. We're not that far in. And seeing if, like, how it goes from there, because right now, at least from the logs I see, it's you're running on 1.56. So maybe it was like there we already fixed something in 1.5.11. I don't know, just to throw it in, like updating to the latest patch release and or Ceph version to the latest one. Maybe that already fixes it. Like, at least for a few customers project we have, basically telling them, hey, which version you were on, and this and this, and we're like, could you try updating to the latest? And sometimes it magically resolves itself. So maybe try updating and then a report back. Let's see how it goes, maybe.
because the latest Ceph releases or Ceph Octopus release is 15.2.11, I think.
Oh, that's it.
Or was 12 even? Maybe it's just 11.
I'll
Or
check
Pacific. Yeah. Or if Rook 1.6 is an option, you can try Ceph Pacific.
Well, my concern is like, okay, if we upgrade to the latest release, we might see some different problems. I mean, if we're trying to take care of issues, maybe now that we have the logs, maybe we can pinpoint what the problem is, because we're probably going to see the same thing over the next release as well.
But do you have a place you could run a test cluster on the new release, or is this a production cluster that you're troubleshooting first before you upgrade?
This is just development cluster.
Development cluster. Okay.
Oh, well, depending on who you're asking, if it's just a development cluster, might be perfect place to check if the new version fixes it, or like if you're running the same version in your production environment, maybe then like if we would see with like the update if we fix it in dev, like we can look into pinpointing it, but it's well.
Well, I mean, I can go ahead and upgrade it. It's just that I want to make sure that we have some closure on these two, that we have enough info, or make some conclusions or what we need to do. I can go ahead and upgrade it. It's not a problem.
Okay, so at least skimming over the logs, the one thing that is a bit, I would say, suspicious would be the that it failed to start up the first monitor in time, at least, or well, it failed to check the quorum on it. So that not only points to something weird with the network, or maybe really just the network being so slow to pull the image. Oh, and did it happen again? Oh yeah, failed to get now, just fine. Is it like if you have the same setup in another in like two environments, let's try updating Ceph to 15.2.11 or 12. 12 it is, and based on maybe like already that, like if it fixes itself, it doesn't try updating the latest version 1.5.11 Rook Ceph release, and seeing if that solves it, and if it doesn't solve it, then I think we should start from there. As like right now, it could be something maybe fixed in the patch release of Ceph and our Rook Ceph operator, maybe.
Okay,
and at least, especially with the many patch releases, I think we probably fix it.
So I'll go ahead and download the latest Rook release, which is what, 1.7 or
1.6.2.
6.2. I'll try that on a different cluster, and that one will pull in Ceph version 15.2.12.
I'm not sure if we have updated the manifest files already, but you can just specify the Ceph image version in your cluster object on your own.
So
I'm not able to send you the link to the upgrade guides, but maybe if someone else, I'm on my phone and computer. Well, if someone could maybe post in a link to the Ceph to the Rook Ceph upgrade guide.
Well, I think it's easier to just start from scratch on a different cluster now. Instead of doing upgrade, we might run into other problems.
Sounds good. And we can let's follow up in Slack if we can do that too, since this meeting it's hard to troubleshoot in detail here. So we'll follow up there.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks everybody. Okay, and then next item here on the agenda around the rate limiting. So yeah, we should not have any rate limiting at all. We should be, we are approved by Docker Hub to be part of the open source program. There shouldn't be any issues with that whatsoever. I have followed up a couple times to get, they were supposed to put like a badge, on the repos that are part of the open source program, and they still haven't followed up on that. So it's hard to get a little conclusion to that one, but we should not be seeing any rate limiting within the Rook repos itself. Did this end up being like somebody seeing that, or is it like a bunch of they're pulling from a lot of different repos and a lot of different projects and stuff, and they're seeing some rate limiting in general?
That's what it sounds like. They were seeing other rate limiting and didn't realize that Rook wasn't affected by that.
Okay, good.
And then like a couple of us just forgot about that we shouldn't have rate limiting, and we were commenting, oh, maybe we should publish or push to Quay or whatever too. But wait, no, we shouldn't have rate limiting. We shouldn't need to do that. Let's keep Docker hubs and call it good. Yeah. So this issue's closed, but if you have any more insight, it might help if you want to comment on that issue.
I could ping them again as well too to see if there's an update on getting a badge or some clarity there. But yeah, we should not have any rate limiting at all for the Rook repos.
Right. Okay. Cool.
All right, and then we have a PR I think that's still in progress. I think for the roadmap updates.
That's right. Yeah, I think I've got captured most of the features that we're planning on for 1.7. And so if there are any other last minute things, feel free to comment on the PR. And we can always edit it, of course, later, but this captures the current plan for 1.7. And the themes section below will be kind of future things that could even make it into 1.7, but more likely after 1.7.
Yep, that sounds good. It looks good to me as well too. Oh, shoot. Just closed the agenda doc.
Reboot.
Yeah, that's it. You got to reboot the whole computer now. Okay, and then yeah, so folks can finish up their feedback or any other last requests for the 1.7 roadmap PR here, 7910. And then Blaine, you had a agenda item that you wanted for properly handling resource deletion.
Yeah, this is I guess the problem statement is currently it's possible to delete the Ceph cluster from underneath its dependent resources, like an object store or a file system, if there are no PVs associated with the file system or block pool. And so this is a design. There are two design documents in here. One of them will be kind of selected as the I guess the end result, but yeah, the basic idea is that we shouldn't be deleting the Ceph cluster from underneath resources that are reliant on it. And in the second design, it is more around actually codifying dependency relationships between resources more broadly. So even being able to say that our Ceph NFS resources can be dependent on anything that has a pool or a Ceph pool in this case. And then also codifying there are object bucket and soon COSI buckets that could be dependencies. The graph is actually a really nice, I think, way to illustrate there are these various dependency relationships that exist because of the CRDs we have in Ceph that we can effectively prevent users from deleting things when they have things that are using their resources. And this also, I think in some ways can make our development cases a little easier. If we just delete all the resources, they will be deleted in the appropriate order because deletion of things will be blocked if there are dependents. I really hope I was not on mute for that whole thing.
We heard you.
Okay, great.
That would have been awful plain. Definitely listening to. Yeah, there's a really good image here as well too. It's kind of capture and help kind of visualize what the dependencies are and how we can express them. Cool. So yeah, looks like you've gotten some feedback from folks. Is there like an action item for that you want Blaine to drive to conclusion on this one, or soliciting more feedback, or making this more visible for the rest of the community?
I think visibility, and if anyone does have particular feedback, I guess just, yeah, let me know. I think most of the feedback is really around like implementation, which I think Travis and Seb are on top of. But if there are particular use cases, especially around like I think one of the big open questions that we have in it, and that we're deferring until later currently in the design, is storage classes, and whether or not the existence of a storage class that references a like file system or block pool is something that should block deletion of the file system or block pool. Because I can see some use cases for users actually wanting to leave the storage class in place while they delete the underlying subcluster, or the underlying like source of storage while they replace it with something, for example.
Yeah, and if I were to summarize the goal in my mind, at least, so the goal is to prevent accidental deletion of resources, so people don't lose data accidentally. But at the same time, we don't want to prevent intentional deletion or cleanup of a cluster, or we don't want to make it too painful to uninstall, basically. So that's kind of the balance that I want to keep in mind, at least. But yeah, there's lots of details that I'm sure we don't have time to dive into here. I guess we'll follow up on the PR.
Okay. Thanks for putting that together, Blaine.
Yeah.
Right, that's all of the agenda items that are in the doc here. Are there any other further comments or topics anybody wanted to get addressed here? Okay. All right then. Yep. Thanks everybody for joining in today and the good discussion. And we will follow up on Slack and in PRs on GitHub. Thanks everybody.
Thanks everyone. Have a good day.
Have a good one.
Thanks,
Bye,
everyone.
everyone.
Bye now.